Men of Reddit, what's the most pathetic ridiculous thing another man has done in attempt to assert his dominance over you? Had a dude get mad at me for talking to his girl all the time. I was her econ tutor. His macro was jealous of your macro. He felt his utility marginally diminishing. A guy was mad at me while sitting at a light and was revving his engine. It sounded like he held it at the red line. And there was a big crack sound and smoke started coming out of the front of his car. The dummy blew his engine. We once had a candidate come into the interview and legit say he wanted to sit behind the desk because he was going to be asking the questions to decide if he wanted to work with us. I think he'd gotten some bad advice about having confidence. I laughed, but our HR manager flipped her sheet. The only time I have ever seen her call security. What was the guy's reaction once he realized it was going badly? Oh, he was committed. Well, this is obviously a hostile work environment. Blah. 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 I was standing in the breezeway outside a friend's apartment while in college. And a guy coming down the stairs from an upper floor kinda tripped near the bottom of the stairs and stumbled into me. It was clear he's super drunk and immediately got aggressive. He was so worked up about being tougher than me for some reason that he started doing push-ups at me while me and my friends just laughed. Fortunately, his friends came and apologized and took him back upstairs. But it was definitely the most bizarre assertion of dominance I've ever encountered. Was on a 4-hour flight. In a 2-person row. The guy demanded to have full access to the middle armrest. Would push my arm off it if I ever got near it. Oh man. I was in the middle of a 3-seat row. The guy in my left was some type of exec checking his work email on his laptop. In a way, after the first hour of armrest jockeying, I just asked him, "Are we doing this the entire flight?" He pretended to not speak English. The mother ducker was reading his emails in English and pulled the no hables card on me. He finally conceded the armrest after that. When asked about what his hobbies are, he responded with hobbies are for children and single women. I work. You want to know how cool I am? You want to know how tough I am? I'm so tough that I have no life. Interests or friends. I used to tend bar in Milwaukee. And there is nothing that triggers self-conscious whiners more than seeing someone drinking something they don't like. I cannot tell you how many arguments began with some dude, always unsolicited, unprovoked. Mind you, feeling compelled to judge and educate other guys about what they're drinking, or not drinking. You drink that piss. You do say. And it goes downhill from there. No one cares. Drink what you like and shut up. Literally last weekend, some really drunk dude who I had never once met or interacted with tried to fight me, to impress the girls he was with. It was completely ridiculous. And his way of trying to initiate it was just repeatedly body checking me on the dance floor, which I ignored because I thought he was just being drunk and dumb. Turns out one of his friends had to stop him from blindsiding me with a sucker punch to the face, assuming he was able to aim that well. Some people do not mix well with alcohol apparently. Generally, guys purposely bumping into you when you walk past them. Especially if they are with friends. Then they get real aggressive and act like you intentionally bumped into them. Not letting go of a handshake. It's happened a few times and always make me wanna treat it as a hostile action. Last time it happened, I just started caressing their hand with my finger and the guy jerked away. I winked at him after. Edit. Thanks for the silver and all the make it's actually awkward suggestions, strangers. That's great. I found that the best way to respond to angry dudes road raging is to blow them a kiss. They lose their shit at that. In JR High, I remember this one bully that would get on his tiptoes and bow out his chest like a gorilla and get all in your face whenever he felt threatened. It was such a funny stereotype maneuver. He tried to drink water faster than me. No one drinks water faster than me. Threatened to beat me up if I so much as look at his girlfriend again. His girlfriend was my sister. I maintained eye contact whilst laughing. As she dumped him on the spot. Edit. Thanks for the gold. It's almost as if your sister exists as a person with social connections and not a possession in a vacuum. Almost. I was walking to my car after school and this guy getting in his car just yells at me, "You ugly F." Bro. I flipped him off without even looking at him and he yelled "Itch" and drove off. How petty do you have to be to tell someone minding their own business that they're ugly? People that shout out of cars are cowards. I work in a grocery store and sometimes help unload the delivery trucks, and our delivery comes in on what we call cages. Like a 6-foot cage on wheels, and obviously one that's full of toilet paper will be really light and one filled with 2-liter bottles of juice are the heavy ones. The lift that lowers them from the truck has that patterned metal floor and you have to pull the heavy cages hard to get them off. Now I'm 5 feet 8 inches and don't have a lot of weight on me, but I can pull these cages off just fine. But there's a guy who's like 6 feet 2 inches and is always trying to show how strong he is. So whenever I'm helping and he's there, he always insists he gets the heavy cages and that I get the little guy cages. Everyone agrees he needs to grow up. A former co-worker. He would just stand in the way and refuse to move. Even if he wasn't in the way, he would purposely get in the way. I work in a narrow kitchen, so you can imagine how annoying that could be. At one particular moment I was carrying a bulky 20 pounds box and he decided to do that. I pretended to not see him and barreled into him. He fell over and got incredibly mad at me. Started talking about how I have no muscle. It was pretty funny. It was a display of the most fragile masculinity I've ever seen. One time at a house party, a few of us were talking to some of the girls there and one of the guys randomly started talking about how he does MMA. Then another guy joined in and those two started wrestling in front of the girls. I don't think their shirts needed to come off either, but what the duck do I know? A friend tried to make himself look good in front of his crush by literally putting me in a random chokehold for a laugh. Turns out it was because I was talking to her. I had a girlfriend at the time. We were just talking. It wasn't a chokehold though. It was basically just a headlock. So I decided to correct him. I was fairly oblivious and didn't realize this was a failed alpha move. Creeped the shit out of his crush that he would do that out of nowhere, and she stopped talking to him. Apparently she quite liked him up until that point. So he kinda shot himself in the foot. Was out having a drink. Started chatting to the guy next to me when I learn he, too, is a musician. He then tells me, "You're not a musician." I find it offensive when people tell me they're a musician when they haven't put in the time and dedication that I have. Okay dude, come down off your ego trip. Christ. Edit. Grammar. On mobile. This happened over D&D when my friend, who owns a store, let these guys we didn't know that well to join our campaign. I don't know why. Capital I. Out of the table got singled out, but a girl walks in and this guy complained that I didn't order pizza for him. Said, "How about you go duck yourself?" when I asked him if he wanted some. Walked over behind me and playfully puts his arms around my neck. I told him I'd punch him in the face if he did it one more time because I don't know who the duck he is. Absolutely ruined my day. Edit. Oh my lord. My first Reddit gold. Thank you, stranger. The overly firm handshake is always annoying. I'm not a freak show of strength, but I have a good enough grip that I can get them to back off. I work in the Middle East and we had one guy who was former Australian military working with us. I was in the car behind and they stopped at a checkpoint. The soldier leaned into the window to ask some questions and then shook the hand of the Aussie guy who was in the passenger seat. And then I saw the soldier leaning almost entirely into the car, barely keeping balance on his feet. I had not ducking idea what was going on. We got to the camp a bit later and he was bragging about pulling the soldier into the car while they were shaking hands because he was showing who the alpha was. Duck off, man. He's a soldier with a gun at a checkpoint. Just wave and smile like the rest of us. I always feel like the guys who refuse to make room for you when walking by in the other direction are trying to assert their dominance and make themselves feel like hot shit. I never understand why people do that. I figured out the best way to handle this when I was in college and the sidewalks were narrow. Just stop walking and stand still. Now they're the only ones walking and have to go out of their way to avoid you instead of them expecting you to move. My neighbor in front of I'm a guy, House had a boyfriend that would literally rip his shirt off and come outside every single time I was in my front yard. It could be 7 AM or midnight, but it wouldn't matter to him. I could be walking to my car and here comes Mr. Globberjim flexing all around his yard. He would immediately go back inside when I went back inside. This went on for almost half a year until one day I saw him hop into his mega lifted truck and drive away, never to be seen again. He did have pretty sweet pecs though. One guy I know tried to get everyone to whip out their big digs and compare sizes. And honestly, it came across as one of the most insecure and childish efforts to assert dominance ever. Because big dig size has nothing to do with dominance. Also, this is the guy when we were getting a house insisted we've all gotta be equals. Despite always trying to run things. Was at a party and was given the task of handing out beers to people. This guy flipped a sheet. Screaming, saying he only drink real beer. Dude. It was cold and free. That is the best beer there is. I had someone stand on their tippy toes to seem taller when we were talking. There was this sergeant I had the misfortune of working with who was one of the worst people I've ever met. He was so toxic and alpha that people wouldn't ask questions because they didn't want to be put down in front of their peers. He would actively go out of his way go shame what were essentially kids for not knowing something. I had zero respect for that piece of work. Dancing at the club, minding my own business. Dude starts talking to me. Guess I was dancing too close to his chick or his sister or whatever, I don't know, I didn't even really notice her until he said something. He goes, I'm paraphrasing. I was pretty drunk, your arms are so thin. Grabs my arm compared to mine. Like implying my muscles aren't worthy to dance with he. Which I wasn't even doing. So just kinda laughed right in his face and kept dancing right there. He didn't say anything after that. It was weird, and in hindsight I probably should have gotten a bit more mad. But I just couldn't take him seriously at all. This guy from work gave me a lift, which was decent. But he had a chip on his shoulder about it. He put on the child locks. I couldn't get out. So he came around to let me out of the back. And I got out and walked off. Didn't close the door, I'll let him do it like a chauffeur. The people that try to act like a psychological genius and try to analyze you and figure out what kind of person you are. My friend's dad does this constantly with me and misses the mark every time, and it just makes him look like a dumbass. That one guy who refuses to walk on the correct side of the whole lane, etc. Like, do you drive on the wrong side of the road? Too? New people at work trying to take my front seat in the van. They act like first come first serve, almost saying we ain't going nowhere if I have to sit in the back. It's so sad cause I have to sit there to navigate and call clients for the driver. So the driver says, sorry mate, I need him there, if you want you can just get out and wait till we get back. The person always has some next alpha beatdown persona for the day. Like he created the man in Ace on himself. It's super strange. One guy looked like he was gonna cry. I once knew a guy that would walk over with his chest puffed out anytime someone was talking to a girl and work into the conversation until he had separated the other guy from it. I personally found it hilarious because it was all an act. He's got a girlfriend now and has dropped the tough guy charade. Some people just act the way they think they are supposed to, even when it's not who they truly are. Glad he figured it out. Talked a girl I cared about into not speaking to me again. She never told me that they were dating and she was flirting with me. Sending selfies and video clips etc. I only found out almost a year later that she was being unfaithful with him. My granddad was recently diagnosed with cancer at the time. And I saw him on Facebook mocking me while my granddad was dying. The girl heart reacted the post. The funny thing is that he called me a cuck. His girlfriend was being unfaithful with him, but he called me a cuck. When I tried to confront him about his bullshit and about her unfaithfulness, he blocked me. I can't think of anything more pathetic than a guy only mocking someone when they are not around and then running away when you try to confront them. Worked as a lifeguard at a summer camp years ago. During safety training we had to do a missing person search which required all available staff to join hands and walk from the beach to into the water as far as we could while feeling with our feet for the missing swimmer. During training there was a sandbag we had to find. The guy next to me kept insisting on holding mine in a certain way because I will take the upper hand in this situation. Said at me while staring me down. Whatever. Dude. We're theoretically looking for a drowned child right now. I don't know if it was necessarily dominance assertion or misplaced chivalry. But Miso and I have a deal where I cover all the other bills in the house as long as she covers food and does more chores. We both came to that agreement. It just works easiest. That includes covering eating out a reasonable amount. And then I'll chip in. So we're just getting some BK I think, and the guy at the register saw that Miso was about to pay. So he said no. He pays probably assuming I was some deadbeat or something. Instead of putting up a fuss, I just covered the $10 or whatever it cost. My best female friend's boyfriend, who is 100% jealous, threatened by how close I am to her, will constantly try to one-up me in conversation whenever I talk to her. He keeps an eye on me the whole time that I'm with her, and as soon as I make a joke or tell a story, he jumps right in with his own thing to try and top what I said. Like, every single time that I speak. Oh. That, and he'll roll up his sleeves and sit with his elbows on the table in a not so subtle effort to compare his biceps to mine.